everybody. How are we doing today? I hope you guys are doing great. I am nice and cozy. It's a little bit chilly here this morning. I hope you're having a weather wherever you are. Hopefully not too hot, too cold, and that wherever it is, you're nice and cozy, you're nice and cool. We're gonna have a great match today. PTF, Phoenix Task Force versus Wolfpack. We saw Wolfpack last week. PTF, second time here. First time was early in the competition. They've been able to see each other fight. If they've been watching the streams, watching the VODs back, now it's time to see if they've learned from what they've seen. We're going to go ahead and get right on into it. Now, the first thing we always do when we have our streams is we talk about the maps, right? The maps are the first thing. They're the big thing. So let's get right into that. Satac works on a series of different maps. We want to maintain fairness to the different teams, but we also want to have some interest when we get into these matches. Something different, so it's not just people over the ocean at high altitudes slinging missiles. We want to give them terrain to fight in. We want to give them weather to deal with, things to think about, stuff to make it a bit more dynamic. And how do we do that? Well, of course, as you can see here, we have 5 different maps. We actually have a total of 6 different fighting locations spread out amongst the different maps. Each fighting location has 3 different weather settings. We have a list of those different weather settings, and what we do is we roll a random number right here live on stream. We take that number, we let them know, the people running the server, and they get the mission set up. That number tells us not only which map, but also what weather setting. So we're going to go ahead and do that right here. And go ahead and see the number generator. We've got 1 to 18. Let's see what we get. We get 17. That is a high number. Let me double check. 17 is going to be Aldana versus Sinfluria. Boy, do my words fail me. And that's going to be morning overcast. Now, that should be on the Syrian map. Although, if the reason I can't figure out where this map is because it is on the South Atlantic map, then that's why. I'll go ahead and let the right people know. And while we do that, let's go ahead and let's talk about the teams a bit. Hopefully they have it. Hopefully I have it. If it's South Atlantic, I'm in a pickle. I'm sure we'll work something out. As you can see here, we've got 4 separate groups, 4 different fighting maps. We've got ETF, Alamo, and FTQ in Group A, 51st, 343rd, and GTAC Group B, TMC, SPR, RS, and GC in Group C. And finally, today's groups, Group D, PTF, InSky, NP, and Wolfpack. The reason we do this is these different groups will fight amongst themselves as a pool. Whoever gets the highest amount of points in that pool then moves on to the knockout rounds. Those are our semifinals. Then we get down to a tournament-style setup where different teams go through the brackets, winners fighting winners, all the way until we have our final 2 in the grand finale. Like I said, today we have PTF versus Wolfpack. Now, Wolfpack we just saw fight last week on the Persian Gulf map. They were extremely aggressive. They did fight in Sky. Let's go ahead and take a look at the results of that match. As you can see here on your screen, InSky currently leads Group D with 2 points, having fought and won against both PTF and Wolfpack. Now, Wolfpack, last week we saw them come out swinging against InSky. InSky plays a very passive game. In fact, even on their first missiles in, that was something. And it's back. Okay. Well, as we saw, the 2 teams were a little bit differently matched. InSky lets those missiles come in. Wolfpack, very aggressive, firing very quickly, pushing in spreads, getting able to get all of their players online to fire their missiles at the same time. We'll have to see how that tactic works out today against PTF. All right, and I just got news back from the team. It looks like we're going to have to re-roll for the map. No Syria. So we'll be rolling a 1 through 12 now. See what we get. We get an 11. Once again, we're getting high numbers. I'll go ahead and let them know 11 is going to be Ross versus Liwa. The same location we had last week. This time, cloudy and midday. Now, one of the things interesting about last week's fight was it was late afternoon, which meant as the fight dragged on, the sun went down and it did get dark. But today, the teams will not have to worry about that. What they will have are clouds, but Ross versus Liwa is on and around the area of Dubai, which is a very, very flat, low-altitude part of the world. So we probably won't see a lot of turning into the ground through the clouds like we saw in some of the Caucasus fights earlier, where teams were fighting over high-altitude mountains and would dive under the clouds to dodge a missile and find the mountain waiting just below for them. But it does look like we don't have to see that today. But, of course, the teams will have to let us know by their actions. They'll have to show us in the fight, which I'm excited to see. I hope you guys are excited to see that. Today hopefully should be exciting. I think it will be. These two teams both have something to show for themselves. We'll go back ahead and take a look at those results from last week. Both teams have a chance to get their name on the board here. They both lost to InSky in their first fights, but they're learned. They know better. Right? They've had a loss. They've rethought their strategies. How they're going to fight each other, something of interest today. I want to see, does Wolfpack come back with that same really aggressive fighting? So it's done it again. I don't know why it keeps doing that, but it does keep doing that. So I apologize, guys. We've seen Wolfpack aggressive fighting style. PTF also had a relatively aggressive fighting style. Both tactics didn't work too well against InSky, who is extremely defensive. But two hyper-aggressive fighting styles fighting one another, what is it going to come down to? That'll be an interesting thing to see. From here, before I see the match, my guess is... what would my guess be? Well, I think I'd have to say that one thing we noticed Wolfpack do in the past was turn cold after firing their missiles. They got in real close, about 20 miles, fired their missiles, and immediately turned cold. And I question if that tactic will work well against an aggressive team. Now, if they get launched on about 40 miles, it might have a bit of a problem. They might not give themselves enough room to maneuver out of return missiles from PTF. But if PTF fires the same thing, gets nice and close, and tries to go in for a crank, firing missiles almost pitbull off the nose, barely giving them time to guide into that target, Wolfpack might be able to score a few early kills here, which is something, of course, that they're trying to do. Everybody wants to get kills on first missile launch because that is the golden outcome. But I think it's up to PTF to show us how they're going to have pre-planned and prepared themselves to get out of the situation. How you doing, Mika? And how you doing, High Castle? Thank you, too, for showing up in chat. All right, we've got the last little bit of things getting sorted out. We're going to go ahead and watch my favorite part of the stream. Oh, what can I say? I love the whole thing. Let's go ahead and watch that trailer, though. That one always gets me riled. And, of course, before we go over, a thank you to our sponsors, without whom we could not be doing what we're doing today. And the server is up. We are here once again on the Persian Gulf. Ready to see the fight. The weather is gorgeous. Clouds, midday. We should be able to get some fantastic beauty shots. Let's talk about the competition. The way that this works, as you can see here, there is a circle on the center of the map. One team starting here on the blue side. This is PTF at first with Wolfpack up here on the north side, on the red side. Each team starts outside of the circle on a runway where they can set their ordnance, get themselves in formation on the runway, take off, get the initial plan they want laid out in the air, and fly into the circle. Now, the first team to get in the circle starts a timer, 5 minutes. The other team has 5 minutes from when the first team gets in the circle to get themselves in the circle. Otherwise, they lose by forfeit. Once they're in the circle, fight is on. They are free range to shoot each other down. Now, if at some point somebody leaves the circle, they can't get back in. They've got to maintain position inside the circle throughout the fight. If they leave the circle, if they get pushed out, if they defend out, if they have to run that missile out of energy and get out of the circle, the only way for them to win is to shoot down everybody in the circle without entering it again. If they enter it again, their plane automatically self-destructs, which is, of course, a bad thing when you're trying to win a dogfight. Our two teams are sorted out here. We are just getting the very last bit of our systems sorted out on our end so we can watch a fantastic match. Getting our TAC views all connected and everything, and it is. Let's take a look at the teams as they are now. First up, we'll take a look at Wolfpack. Wolfpack bringing out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 F-16s. This is almost the same formation that we saw last time. Look at them all lined up and gorgeous. Wow. I do love seeing all of these liveries the same. Wolfpack ready to rock with their triple bag Vipers. They really like to use the gate on those Vipers, and they will be rocking hard. I suspect we'll see much the same as we did last week. And as an F-16 pilot myself, I have to say, I like to see the Viper, but boy, something is upsetting me. There's a little bit of Viper infighting. That missile does not belong on the wingtips. You gotta put the AMRAAM on there. But all in good fun. These guys know what they're doing. Excited to see that. Let's see what PTF Phoenix Task Force has for us today. We've got a set of 3 2-ships, all different. Oh, PTF with their nice, large digital camos. Indeed. We've got ourselves 2 Vipers, 2 Hornets, and 2 Jeffs. Oh, they look glorious. This will be a bit interesting. We'll have to see. If I were to assume they're going to run 3 sets of 2, each set being a similar formation, but the entire group fighting as dissimilar. And it'll be interesting to see what they do differently between all of their jets. Now, PTF sent me a little message earlier today, giving me a little bit of background on their group. A little interesting. We've talked in the past about having a big international competition. That's what Satac is. And right now, PTF, a great representation of that, mostly managed by a Pakistani group, but multinational. They are a group that has been around for a little bit. They have been flying in competition, fighting in DCS since 2020. This is the 3rd year of their competition fighting. So it'll be interesting to see their tactics. They've got pilots from all over the world. They've got 2 Pakistani pilots, a UK pilot, a German pilot, and a Saudi Arabian pilot. And if that only adds up to 5, it's because I can't count. There are 3 Pakistani pilots. So truly a multinational force, showing some of the really interesting facts about Satac, just how multinational it is. We've had groups from the entire world here today to fight for our viewing pleasure. 9, the wingtip Sidewinder is the best. No. You put those, you stagger your missiles in the Viper. You do indeed stagger them. Let's go ahead. Let's get some nice beauty shots as we wait for the teams to sort themselves out onto the runways. A little bit of dispersion here as the different aircraft start at different points so they don't spawn into each other. Glorious. I am excited to see how PTF employs these. Now, today, you might notice 2 things, viewers of Satac. First, if you've been watching some of my past castings of this competition, unfortunately, my co-host will be a little bit preoccupied today and will not be able to join us as he has to moderate. And why does he have to moderate? Well, because there are 2 Satac streams happening at the same time. When you work throughout the entire world, sometimes you just can't get people to show up at different times. At different times, you only have so much hour in the day, and we want to make sure that everybody is able to get, you know, a fair chance. No one has to come to this fight completely exhausted. So we do have 2 streams today. We have, of course, this stream here, Wolfpack versus PTF. But what else? We have the fantastic Airshow D. We'll be doing a stream of the other fight between, who is it? I have to check. FTQ versus ETF, both happening simultaneously. So if you've got 2 monitors or you got a big monitor or a TV, make sure you're watching both fights because they'll both be fantastic and you won't want to miss them. But if you only can watch one stream at a time, whichever stream you choose, there will always be uploaded to YouTube or a Twitch VOD or both, always both. Of the fight that you can watch after. That'll have the same commentary it did live and the same fighting. It'll be a great watch. So if you can't catch a stream live, make sure you watch the VODs afterwards because they're still great. Of course, we saw their PTF starting to get rolling. They've got their aircraft making their way out towards the fighting line. 1 Viper and 1 Hornet went first. The little administrative message from Tech. On the other hand, we've got Wolfpack have made their ways down the runway, starting to do their elephant walk, getting their aircraft sorted out. Thank you both for the follows, Easy and Rum Runner. Do appreciate those greatly. Oh, it does look glorious. You know, I like seeing the different airplanes. I think they bring a great dynamic to the fight, each plane having its own strengths and weaknesses, but seeing them roll out all in matching Vipers does feel a bit professional, doesn't it? It feels a little bit like we're watching 51st and 100th Key Up when they all fly flankers, or when we see just any formation that is... It just looks purpose-built. And you know what? PTF will look the same way with their sets of duos. Getting ready for their elephant walk here. Now, Wolfpack likes to take off fast. They do not dilly-dally on the ground. Wake turbulence means nothing to them. They'll be going one after another right into the turbulence. Now, there are a couple ways to mitigate that they can do, and they somewhat are. You'll notice that aircraft not directly lined up between one or behind one another at all points, although there are still some, allowing for a bit of clean air. They also will maneuver slightly on the runway during their takeoff roll to make sure they have clean air behind them, but they are ready and waiting. Those guys have been rearing to go. We have the PTF guys making their first approaches to the runway here. And what are we going to see here? Looks like they will be doing dissimilar. Perhaps 1 Viper with The Hornet, how is this sorted out? We've got one Viper, one Hornet first on the line, followed by a Jeff, a Viper, a Hornet, and a final Jeff. So we will have to see what the plan is, and we'll get a little bit of a read of that as they get on the runway. Let's go get some nice view of them as they line up in their gorgeous jets. Oh, the custom liveries is maybe one of the best parts. Now, we'll talk about something here. This has been a little bit of a competent? My brain is almost fried. A little bit of a point of discussion here, as you can see that Hornet. Now, there are multiple ways to bring your aircraft out. You can, of course, bring it with all of the fuel tanks. The Hornet can carry 3 fuel tanks, can carry 1 center line, 2 inboard wing pylons, and then it can carry its missiles on the outboard pylons. But we've seen this before. Single center line, cheek-mounted Sparrows, 4 AMRAAMs on the inner pylon, and clean outer pylons. This isn't the first time we've seen this combination. And from what we can tell, from what the teams have said, that actually ends up giving about the same fuel efficiency. Because you have less drag on the aircraft, you can fly at a lower throttle setting. You basically get the same amount of endurance out of this setup than you would out of the double tank setup. And when you do drop those tanks and get into the fight and start turning, you do gain a bit of mobility. So, definitely something interesting to note. And we've seen this with a couple different teams this year with the Hornet, whereas, as you can see there, the Jeff running triple bags. And out here, this starting Viper, very interesting decision. Now, I have not seen this yet, but I am excited to see it. I think this is a very interesting move out of PTF. As you can notice, zoom in a bit closer just on this Viper here, it has its lightning targeting pod. Now, the lightning targeting pod can be slaved to the Viper's FCR, the fire control radar, which means that this pilot can, as they get in the sky, visually identify what radar track is what aircraft, which is really, really impressive. We haven't seen this happen yet, but part of me, now that I'm seeing it, questions why we haven't seen it happen yet. It's a great way to understand what the enemy team is doing quickly. You don't have to wait for the fight to go on. You don't have to try and correlate nails or deal with aircraft turning their radars off so that you don't have an RWR return. You can use visual identification. If the pilot is good enough with it and at the right angles, they might even be able to use this to determine how much ordnance the aircraft they're flying against is. Of course, it looks like they only intend to do this with their single lead Viper. None of the rest of the aircraft are using targeting pods. You'll also notice that this Viper, with the correct staggered loadout, love to see my missiles like that, is running, I was about to say, is running a single internal or center line fuel tank. My goodness. But no, the Viper is in fact running 3 bags, just rearming himself there. And it looks like Wolfpack is ready to fight. These jets rearing on the line. We do see this is the staggered takeoff. Now, we've seen this with a couple of teams before where aircraft are sorted to be able to take off as quickly as possible. In this method, the first 2 aircraft can take off out of gate. They can take off, oh, that is interesting. We'll have to talk about that. They can take off in mill power, and the second 2 aircraft can take off in gate, in full afterburner. And more or less the same time everybody reaches the end of the runway will already be in formation. The number 3 man here, which is in the Jeff, crosses under to the right side of that Viper there, and you get a nice fingertip formation right out of takeoff. It's very helpful. Like I said, we do need to talk about something. That is the Hornet's choice of ordnance. We're seeing centerline single fuel tank, 2 missiles on each side, and 2 Talts. This isn't the first time we've seen Talts come out, and they could be very effective against the high aggression playstyle that we've seen out of Wolfpack, especially with confusing their initial launches, confusing their follow-up shots, getting more clutter in the air for the Viper's radar to have to deal with, and hopefully just sowing a bit of confusion. I'm very interested to see how this plays out, and it seems like quite the smart way of doing it on the Hornet. Lots of aerodynamic efficiency in the way they've done it. They can get those Talds off quickly, jettison the racks, and increase the slipperiness of their jet, make it go through the air faster, and PTF is ready. Let's go ahead and get ourselves ready to watch these guys roll down the runways. And let's start counting the fight in. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Fights on. Do very much hope to see some good fighting out of these guys. And I do hope to see a good takeoff here out of PTF. Let's just listen to those sounds of those jets for a moment. Well, PTF letting a single Viper go first. Following up the Hornet there. Getting those towels early. They definitely looked like they were ready to take the fight by storm, but they're choosing to play it slow, single aircraft launch at a time. Let's take a look at Wolfpack. While PTF gets the rest of their airframes in the air, I suspect that Wolfpack is rolling their final 2 aircraft here. Middle 2 Vipers already airborne and the final 2 rolling down together. Like I said, they just don't care about that wake turbulence. They're able to fly quite well. Oop, looks like that left man got himself in a wee bit of wake turbulence, but it's all good. Easily sorts himself out. The great marksmanship of flying. Indeed, you have to fly true just like you'd have to shoot true if this were a gun competition. The great flying marksmanship here that we see. Control over their aircraft is one of the things that helps separate these teams from those of us who simply cannot. Those of us who cannot fight will teach or watch or comment. And controlling their aircraft while being able to communicate with their partners in their teams is something that is very impressive to watch them do. We see it happen quite a lot. Hopefully we'll be able to ask them in the interviews tonight after the matches what they were thinking, what they were saying, and how they reacted to different threats. The first set of threats that I'd like to talk about with Wolfpack will be how they deal with PTF's use of TALs. PTF continuing to let single aircraft roll out, but letting their guys get into the right altitudes. They're spreading out from the start. Looks like they're trying to take a wide fan here. I think it's safe to say PTF has certainly watched Wolfpack's last match and seen how aggressive they were out of the gate. But having their aircraft take a little bit longer to get into the circle, it might let Wolfpack get the upper hand. Wolfpack likes to fight beyond this medium line. They want to get to the opposite side of that circle and really start pushing their enemies to their backs against the wall, so to speak, getting them to have to deal with remembering that they cannot fly outside the circle. Let's take a look at how things are unfolding on the TAC view, shall we? As these guys get themselves in a situation, we can use TACView. It's a fantastic program to get a good idea of how they're getting into a 3D space. Of course, Wolfpack continuing to fly out. They are maintaining a relatively conga line-esque formation. This isn't quite the same spread that we saw before, perhaps a different tactic for a different group. Maintaining 2-3 ships almost, if you were to say they do look like distinctive 3 ships, gaining some altitude, getting above the 16,000 feet, continuing to climb as they make it towards the circle. PTF, on the other hand, has a Falcon quite high up already, as well as some other aircraft, 20,000 feet. Definitely has the height advantage, but both teams still have time before the fight happens. As you can see here, PTF taking a little bit longer. They've got a bigger spread between their aircraft. Looks like once again we're seeing 2 distinct sets of 3, perhaps. This is what we see this fight. We see 2 sets of 3 fighting each other, using one of each of their aircraft in the sets of 3. A pretty interesting method, and I do think we can see now why they chose to set their planes to fly out individually. They're able to get this nice spread between their aircraft, allowing them to fence in and start closing the gap, preventing some of the notch angles and preventing the crank by having another aircraft ready to support. But of course, Wolfpack likes to fire and turn cold, so some of the benefits of this formation may not be seen. The fight has to happen for us to know for sure, though. We do see a pretty decent altitude deviation here. The Viper and the Hornet getting up to altitude where they can get the best range out of their missiles and have the most energy, not only the most energy to put into those missiles, but the most energy to defend the return missiles. You can see Wolfpack over here starting to spread out. Perhaps we will see their 3-2 methodology, where 3 sets of 2 fight on different forms. They get themselves in a nice wall and start trying to collapse the fight on their opponents. As we were saying, this Jeff does not have quite the same altitude that these 2 aircraft in the lead have. Let's go ahead and take a look back on the DCS side of things. Both aircraft getting in here. Blue takes control of the battle area first, despite the fact that Wolfpack flew and got off that runway very quick. The first person to get in there is Blue, probably Gory in the JF-17. Didn't have to spend as much time getting up to altitude as his other teammates did, of course. That means that Gory only at 20,000 feet, whereas Predator and Falcon 27,000 feet, quite high. We see much the same over here. This is interesting. We see the first 2 Vipers going in, Groovy and Pale Rider, 26,000 feet, followed up by Battle and Roller, 35,000 feet each. Drundog and Jobob? I think it's Jobob. I should ask somebody to pronounce these names for me before we get in here. Dundog and Drobob circling, going in a bit of a Rolex, getting a little bit of spacing between them and their initial 2 groups here. Now we see about 8 miles spacing. That's about a grinder's worth of spacing. Once again, now we're seeing about 12 miles separation between these 2 elements. Perhaps trying to implement a grinder as another way to drain out those missiles while maintaining somebody hot, somebody with their radar ready and their missiles in the right direction to fire on the opposing group. I suspect we'll see something similar. Pale Rider and Groovy will probably go up against the lead 3 aircraft in PTF's formation. Once they're in that set, the groups will fire their missiles, guide them in, and once they go active, will probably turn cold, hoping to easily dodge and drain the return fire missiles. In return, the next set of PTF will continue pushing Hott, will run themselves into Battle and Roller, doing much the same. The question really comes down, right now, with Drundog and Jacob in the back, will they be able, Jobob, will they be able to maintain a high level of pressure? Because there are now 3 offensive sets, one after another, from Wolfpack. Will that keep PTF on their toes? Will that mean that PTF's choice to fly in 3 ship formations ends up hurting them? While each formation does have more radars and more missiles, because there's less number of them, will the initial formation be able to reset quick enough to be able to engage the next set from Wolfpack? Or will there be a little bit of time where Wolfpack is able to drive home that fight and close the distance even more? And goodness, let's go ahead immediately take a look back at both the TAC view here so we can get a good idea. The altitude has changed quite a bit. Tanks are starting to come off. Fight's starting to get ready. We are now up, most of PTF, up at higher altitude, all the way up 33,000 feet. The Vipers coming in much the same over here. Jobob and Drug Dog a little bit behind, a little bit low, but probably where they mean to be or near enough to it. Groovy Jerky running out in front. Pale Rider pretty decently far behind them. About 20,000 feet. 30,000 feet. I can't quite read. You can tell I'm a little tired. Running out front to get the first missiles off, but we're starting to see once again a little bit of separation here. This could be an evolution of the tactics we saw in the last match, and they could work out quite well. It'll really depend on how PTF reacts to their initial missile launches, and of course we can see once again as we show the bullseye here, Wolfpack running towards it. They love to fight beyond their middle line. They want to cross that. They want to take the fight to PTF. PTF a little bit slower, despite the fact that they were the first ones. And there's our first missile launch. PTF the first ones in the circle, not the first ones to get a missile off. Wolfpack Groovy Jerky came roaring in with the Viper. Immediately looks like this could be a crank. It is a crank. This is not a cold. They are continuing to keep the aggression on. Now, Groovy Jerky and Pale Rider cranking out different directions. Pale Rider decides to Rolex this, goes into the notch, hopefully maybe trying to get himself a bit invisible. Missile out here on Falcon. That'll probably be an easy defeat. Falcon immediately turns cold, knows he's got friends here to back him up. Falsey looks like maneuvering to intercept Groovy Jerky. Roller and Battle 1-1 coming down the center again. Could they have caused enough of a kerfuffle with the initial formation here out of PTF? Gory dumping altitude, gaining up speed, not quite sure why. You can see that vertical speed, 23,000 at one point, 25,000 feet per minute. Feet per second, I think he'd be dead by now. Feet per minute, getting himself a ton of altitude and a ton of airspeed, but not sure why. Nobody really around for him to engage, and nobody engaged on him. Drop tank off out of Predator. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of these aircraft in DCS here. Roaring in here, and his Viper still has some of his fuel tanks on, opting to lose a bit of altitude. Wolfpack actually doing this across the board to gain energy here, get a little bit more into their missiles, once again trying to run this down the center. You can see Groovy Jerky and Pale Rider now turning out of the fight, running away, resetting, keeping their speed up, making sure they gain altitude and maintain a high speed so that they still have lots of energy. PTF starting to fold a little bit here, but how are they going to come back from it? We still have Lucky in the Jeff, 30,000 ready, not even in burner. Perhaps saving fuel, does have that center line jammer, not as much fuel, does have all 4 of his missiles, not a single missile out of PTF. Roller in battle, screaming in Joe Bob and Drunk Dog. There's a lot of separation between Wolfpack here. Now, this is something that PTF can take advantage of. Second missile out here, Roller, perhaps fired on Falcon. Missiles tracking true. It's still got track. And who does it have track on? You can see it maneuvering aircraft there. This missile here tracking once again on Falcon. Falcon's having to have spent a lot of their energy by continuously having to defend these missiles. Falsey decided to reset. As we roll it back here, you can watch Falsey reset this fight. Not quite sure why, but they're starting to look like they're getting into grinders. PTF perhaps trying to once again use the tactics of in-sky, getting in these grinders and dragging these missiles out. This missile long since dead as it barrels towards the ground. Wolfpack came in very aggressive, looks a little bit out of position, if anything. The sets of grinders here could be a bit of a threat for them to deal with. We can even watch how that developed in real time. Came in, separated out, and these defensive maneuvers actually ended up working in their favor. They were able to communicate themselves into pretty decent grinders. Of course, this grinder, not necessarily the best. You want the aircraft turning out away from each other, not into each other, but the rest of these grinders, especially this grinder here, does look good. Predator taking something down to the dirt. Perhaps this launch here from Joe Bob. Who could that be going for? We don't know. Looks to me like it's going for Predator indeed. A lofted AIM 120, getting a lot of range there. But Predator easily able to drag it into the ground, and the 120 no longer having the speed. This is now Wolfpack's third missile. All 3 of Wolfpack's missiles have been defeated. What are they going to do in return? Predator real low in altitude, but these guys have been very, very, very careful with their throttles. Not going into gate the whole time. Wolfpack seems to have realized they might need to press in. They might need to take the fight to Predator. Predator going into the defensive, take the fight to PTF. Roller and Groovy Jerky now rolling back in. Pale Rider and Drug Dog coming in as well. 2 resetting. This could be 4 aircraft in. We've got the first missile launch out of PTF here with an SD-10 lofted high, hunting down some American aircraft. In fact, going probably for Drundog. Indeed, looks like it is. Drundog needs to do something to defend it. Maybe getting a bit greedy, trying to work out where Gory is gone. Low radar. The Viper can have troubles. Definitely gets the missile warning here. Is turning defensive. Is it going to be enough? Oh, it looks like it might not be. Oh, it's going to be close. It's going to be close, but Drunk Dog does defeat the missiles. We have 2 other missile shots out here from Wolfpack, Groovy Jerky, and Roller both having fired their missiles out. You can hear as Drunk Dog passes that missile just how close it got, but not close enough for a kill. More missiles out. Looks like they once again will not be able to meet anybody. PTF does not have altitude on their side. They are low. They are not as high energy as Wolfpack. You can see here high speeds. If we bring it into the TAC view, you can even see, look, all of these guys nearly at Mach or above it. On the other hand, everybody in PTF below Mach, 0.9 highest on PTF. Not nearly the amount of energy that the Vipers have, and that's going to be a bit of importance here. Now you see 2 Talds here out of Predator. Perhaps they can eat some missiles. It will be interesting to see what Wolfpack does to these Talds. There is one AIM 120 out, and it is tracking, but not on the Talds. It's tracking on Predator. Now, look, here's what I was about to say. Because Wolfpack's got this higher altitude advantage, they are able to put more energy into their missile defense. On the other hand, PTF doesn't have that much energy, not only to put into their missile defense, but their missiles have to spend more energy getting up to where Wolfpack is. Because of this fact, Wolfpack is able to take longer missile shots than PTF is able to respond with, and they need to make sure that they maintain their altitude and speed. Let's just take a look here. The EM equation says that about 9,000 here on Kula, one of the highest and fastest aircraft that PTF has. Take a look at Pale Rider, 11,000, 12,000. Some of these aircraft, even the ones in turn, have nearly as much. Look at this, 14,000 energy units of energy. Not quite sure which units, but it doesn't really matter. 14,000 EM score here on Battle 1-1, despite the fact that Battle 1-1 is turning cold, has more energy than PTF has to work with. AIM 120C out of Falsey here. Nothing came in for those ducks. Looks like they might not have been good. We do have a missile trade here almost. Falsey and Groovy Jerky firing their missiles in trade, but Falsey, lower in altitude, might not have as much energy, means that missile's going to be a bit easier for Groovy Jerky to defend. You can see on launch, Groovy Jerky has about 2,000 more energy, which means that that missile is going to go a little bit further, a little bit faster, and Groovy Jerky has more of that energy to turn into Gs to try and get the missile out. But Groovy Jerky turns back in. It's close, but the missile is defeated. How about Groovy Jerky's missile? It looks like Groovy's Jerky missile was also defeated. We've seen a lot of missiles fired for not a lot of impact. 2 more missiles out here from our boys at Wolfpack. Down towards the boys in PTF. What are they going to do? Missile looks like this one here is on Gory. Gory trying to go perhaps for the notch in the cloud. Wonder if perhaps losing a bit of SA here. Nope, taking a lazy defense. Looks like perhaps what we'll see here is PTF, who's been saving lots of their missiles, saving lots of their fuel, draining these missiles out of Wolfpack. If Wolfpack doesn't start pressing this fight in quick, they might find themselves out of missiles. We take a look around. Let's see how many missiles we have. Battle fired 1 missile. Roller fired all Roller's actives are gone. Drug Dog, very close. Fired 1 missile. Wolfpack's Joe Bob, 2 missiles out. Pale Rider. Pale Rider is loaded for bear and hasn't fired 1 yet. And Groovy Jerky down to his last active missile. AIM 7P here must have been out of the Hornet, but not a problem. The Hornet gone cold means that that missile doesn't have track. Kahlua cannot data link track that for Predator, unfortunately. So Wolfpack has spent some missiles. They do still have enough. They have more than enough missiles to cause this fight to go in their favor, but they've got to continue to be aggressive. We're starting to see Battle 1-1 a little bit forward. Drug Dog now fires out another missile. Looks like it's an exchange at Predator. Predator firing at Battle. Probably a bad call. Battle was already cold. Won't have to spend any energy defeating that missile. Perhaps this AIM 120 going for Kahlua. What do we see? What do we see indeed? AIM 120 out for Battle, definitely defeated. Kahlua probably going to defeat this missile, but it might require a bit more than that. Oh, and it looks like the missile has changed its mind. It's going for Predator, this missile. Well and truly defeated. You can see Battle and Roller actually defending into one another. This is a pretty good tactic, as it allows one to go cold and one to turn hot. We'll have to see what Battle chooses to do. Watch this out again. SD-10 here on Drug Dog. Ooh, this missile has lots of energy. It could have all the energy it needs, but Drug Dog jettisons that tank, turns cold. Will it be enough? It might very well be enough. Missile's turning in. You can start to hear the aircraft. Aircraft noises means the missile is close. But it looks like, where is Drug Dog? There he is. This missile is once again truly defeated. Vipers on Wolfpack using their energy to maintain easy defenses of these missiles. 2 more Talds out from Predator. Means this Hornet is out of Talds. Those Talds might not have been very effective. It doesn't look like they've thrown Wolfpack off their game. Wolfpack is probably already used to seeing the grinder tactic and seeing these 2 dots come out. so close together, they probably have a pretty good idea of what they are, not really catching them off guard. 2 missiles here out. Looks like they are on Falcon. I, once again, don't think that these missiles are really going to be a huge effect. They're quite low on energy by the time they get there. I mean, even if Falsey flies in front of them and grabs the radar from them, they just don't really have the energy. And they're very high. They're now growing up, continuing to track on Falcon. From 2 separate aircraft here, you can see a little bit of a double sort. Pale Rider and Battle come around. Battle actually does a very quick sort. Nose on the target, fires the missile, turns out with Pale Rider. Groovy Jerky also turns out. Now here, if I were Groovy Jerky, I'd want to continue this down the line. Keep fighting, because these guys are now defensive. It lets me get in. And look, your nearest hot enemy, Kahlua, is pretty far away. How's the battle looking now? Another SD-10 out at Roller, followed by another SD-10. 2 SD-10s. The Jeffs are getting low. They're starting to throw missiles out here. It looks like, oh, hold on. Somewhere in there, let's roll back the tape and watch. Wolfpack did lose a pilot. Drungdog here. Missile was defeated. Turns in. And goes hot. Goes hard for Lucky. Who is it? And it is Predator. Low. Runs the AMRAAM. Turns cold. Missile Pitbull off the rail. Strikes into Drungdog. Takes him out. Wolfpack down to 5 players. Continuing to push this hot here. Now we've got an AIM-120 out here for Joe Bob. Does it have the energy? Oh, it doesn't look like it. It looks like this missile is going to eat the dirt, but it will be close. Joe Bob on the dirt, but you can see the missile there ever so slightly. Didn't have enough energy. Really good missile defeats out of Wolfpack. SD-10. This one's fast. Looks like it was trying to go for Groovy Jerky, but it doesn't look like it's going to do it. Lucky chasing Groovy Jerky here out now in the north. Really, what would be great to see is Roller take a right-hand turn here and turn into Lucky. Get him off Groovy Jerky's tail and allow Groovy Jerky to get back into a position to get into the fight. AIM-120 screaming off the rails at somebody. Ooh, it might hit. Oh, it might hit. It does. That is unfortunate. Looks like that missile was going to track nice and true and did, in fact, kill another Wolfpack pilot. We now have Groovy Jerky low getting SD-10'd from Lucky. Once again, with nobody to engage Lucky, an unengaged bandit allows him to maintain the ability to fire another missile on Groovy. Groovy is able to defend from the missile pretty easily. Has a lot of speed, probably goes into the notch and loses the missile there. Joe Bob running out this AIM-120 will not once again have the energy to maintain. Take a look here. Predator running in hot, trying to gain some altitude, looking for targets. Who can he see? Can he see anybody? Now we've got Groovy Jerky. Now Groovy Jerky turned the fight around. Lucky, who turned out, now gets Groovy Jerky on his tail. Groovy Jerky probably likely to run this fight in, but a 120 out from Predator. Oh, it looks like Groovy is able to notch the missile unless it's going for Joe Bob. Oh, Joe Bob, that'll be close, but... Oh, Joe Bob, I don't think you've done enough. Oh, no. That's another loss. Joe Bob is down. Another kill for PTF. Groovy Jerky now in with 9 M's, trying to defend, gets another missile out from PTF. PTF looking like they might have the advantage. They've definitely got the player count. They've got the missile count. Groovy Jerky real low, running fast. Can he dodge the missile? The Dubai Skyline using that to dodge the missiles, and it is unfortunately not enough. That missile tags Groovy Jerky, gets Wolfpack down to their final 2 pilots. Pale Rider up at 20,000 feet, though. Does have a good amount of ordnance. Pale Rider, once again, looks to be the guy who holds the missiles. Down here much lower, we have Battle firing off a missile. Looks like 2 return shots from Faisal and Gory in good positioning here. This missile probably going for Gory. Going to dodge this missile, perhaps, perhaps not. Battle tries, digs them both into the dirt. Now, Pale Rider does have a ton of energy, does have missiles, can get something done here. Try to take a name with them as they go. Who is Pale Rider going to sort on? Be interesting to see. ETF has all their pilots up, lots of options for sorting, and at 18,000 feet, Pale Rider probably getting a little bit of a look-down penalty dealing with a lot of these aircraft, probably trying to use data link to find him. Predator gets an AIM-7 off at Pale Rider, and Pale Rider turns cold. Another missile out from Kahlua. Looks like these will once again be pretty simple defeats. As you can see, A lot of energy that Pale Rider has. These missiles spending most of their energy just to get up to altitude. Battle fires one missile out. Oh, who could this be for? It doesn't have to spend all of its energy getting up to altitude. It looks like it could be very lethal. Looks like it's got 3 targets to choose from, and it chooses Predator. Nope, it chooses Kula. It does. You know, unfortunately, the missile had too many targets to choose from, and it chose to go for none of them. A problem I often have in FPS games when more than one person turns into me. Battle very close to Phasal here. Low altitudes, dodges that missile out. Phasal looks like maybe trying to drag Battle. Lets Falcon in to get the kill. Falcon up at high altitude, or comparatively high. Ooh, Pale Rider fires out all of his missiles. Maybe a bit of frustration there, just trying to get something on the board. Perhaps a bit of a misinput. Looks like a 9. Aim 9 on another aim 9. Interesting choice out of Falcon there. Does not do much. That means Pale Rider is down to perhaps 1 Fox 2. Looks like Pale Rider trying to chase it in. Who's he going to go for? He's in the turn here. Got 1 aircraft high. Oh, that's a 9M. Is that going to be Pale Rider out? Pale Rider does eat the 9M out of Predator, and Phasal fires a 9M. This one looks like it's got Battle's name written all over it, and I believe it does. Blue takes control of the area. First in, last out. PTF have won the fight for first round, but before they can win the second round, PTF has to do the very difficult concept that most DCS pilots can't do. Land their airplane. I know, I'm kidding, of course. These pilots all know how to land their airplanes, and in weathers like this, it's more than capable of being landed in easily. They should have no problems heading back to base. And while they head back to base, let's go ahead and take a look at the TAC view. These fights, of course, one of our sponsors is the wonderful TACView company. So powered by TACView, we shall go in and watch. Now, we saw this at the beginning with our 2 teams. The Vipers of Wolfpack running in a bit of an extended 3-plane grinder here versus the 2-plane grinder that PTF ends up using. Groovy Jerky took that first missile launch, and we watched these grinders form as Wolfpack runs in. They try to maintain their aggression, and they do a good job of it. They do indeed do a better job than they did last week, maintaining the aggression. People are hot rather than firing all their missiles at the same time. They're breaking up into units, but it's just not really enough. The grinder is a fantastic defensive maneuver because, by nature, we'll pull it back so we can illustrate this. Look, Falcon is hot, Phasal is cold. Falcon is cold, Phasal is hot. Someone's always rearing to gun, which means Wolfpack, when they're being aggressive, when somebody in PTF is being defensive, Wolfpack can't force themselves in there. They can't close too quickly because there's always somebody to shoot them. You can see right here, Groovy Jerky could chase Falcon in, but Phasal right here gets close. This missile, extremely low chance that missile is going to kill Groovy Jerky, but it requires Groovy Jerky to maneuver. Now, Groovy Jerky tends to be a bit more aggressive there, but it ultimately is forced to pull out cold, and we see it happen much the same. These 2 Talds look like they really don't do anything. As the fight continues on, Wolfpack does maintain a good pack mentality, getting in close, but, you know, the geometry is starting to break apart, and as the fight goes on, it will break apart, but PTF is maintaining high levels of cohesion in their group. They're keeping this grinder up in some way, shape, or form, allowing them to maintain these defensive maneuvers and really start bleeding Wolfpack out of their opportunities, their options. They're starting to close the gaps here. You can see we lost 1 Wolfpack player and then another. Of course, the first loss was Drug Dog, and then we lost Roller. Roller ran in, probably to help Drug Dog, knew he needed to provide support, but he was a little bit too far back and takes the missile straight from who? Nobody. Oh, perhaps Roller didn't die, and perhaps my counting is bad. We lost somebody. Who was it? Well, I can't tell, but we did lose somebody. There were 2 losses there. Continue the fight. They keep pushing it in. Of course, here we see Joe Bob working with Groovy Jerky to try and be aggressive, trying to take Lucky. Lucky could have gotten himself out of position, but he drags him back into his friendlies, and despite their best attempts, oh, it looks like that aim 9 almost tracked on Groovy. Joe Bob does take the missile from Predator, and then Groovy Jerky, despite trying his best, will inevitably take this 120 again from Predator. Predator living up to their name, getting lots of kills. More missiles out. Battle defend. Wolfpack once again showing they definitely know how to defend the missiles. But it's just a matter of time, and with numbers like these, there's just not too much that Wolfpack can do. I think they decide to run the fight in and end it a bit like gentlemen. Let's go ahead and watch the last of this formation flight into the airfield. PTF probably pretty proud of that first victory. Having all of their aircraft run home now. Perhaps low on fuel. Does look like that Viper is in gate, now in burner, going as fast as they can, crossing the sound barrier. High altitude to save some fuel. They must have some fuel, otherwise they wouldn't be burning as much. Oh man, that was a good fight. I'm really proud of both teams in this first round because we saw an improvement, I would say, in a changing up of tactics, learning from their first round last week out of Wolfpack, which is always good to see. Really a mentality that you have to have in the PvP community, especially in a game like this where there's multiple matches with multiple different teams, different weeks, and you just keep coming back. You can't be defeatist. You've got to look at what happened, think about it, and react. Blue controlled the battle area for 5 minutes. Does give them the victory. They will RTB, and we will get to the next round. We will reset, which means the next round will start at the same time this round did. No advantage for dragging rounds on to get towards a nighttime fight in the end, though I would love to see a night fight between these teams. Goodness. Nice formation flying here from the 3-ship, 2 Vipers, and the Hornet out of PTF. These guys, of course, now just allowed to enjoy their flight back home. Make sure they get their planes down safe and count the victory for one of them, and a Comet goes flying off. The 3-ship that fired the missile, the teams do like to do this, fire off single random missiles on their way back. Lucky looks like not trying to rejoin the formation, said, nope, I don't need to be with those 3 up there. Oh, and a nice little bit of flaring out from the PTF boys as they all begin their break descent down. They are certainly pleased with themselves and their first round win, as they should be. The employment of that grinder was quite good. They maintained formation in some way, shape, or form throughout the entire fight. Were always able to maintain a supporting element towards their lead group, and were ultimately able to win the fight through tactics. Really, I think is what it came down to. A better set of tactics was what allowed them to come out on top. And this nice little line of his friend's aircraft. There's the Hornet. Somewhere around here is a Jeff. There's the Jeff. As they all make their way in. That's not a Jeff, that's a Viper. Where's the Jeff? There's the Jeff. They make their way into landing here at Liwa. Now, as we set up for the next round, what's going to happen? Well, these teams down here, PTF will now, to make sure that it is once again fair, spawn here back up at Ras Al Kaman, and Wolfpack will spawn down south, switching up the fight and allowing the teams to be in a little bit of a difference. Now, it doesn't have a huge impact here, as this is a mostly flat terrain, but it does give the city to the northern team. Of course, there is Al Dafra, and there is some tall buildings here, but a lot of those tall buildings of the infamous Dubai skyline are here in the north. Can be interesting as Wolfpack pushes PTF back north once again, probably, though we could see a change if Wolfpack does what they just did, pushing PTF into the city. Could be interesting to see how the tall buildings play into making it a bit more difficult for the PTF members to defend incoming missiles, but we will have to see. Looks like that 3-ship getting themselves sorted out to land. All aircraft coming in, landing on the right runway, the one they didn't take off from. It's always good to see. Now, where are they? I like to play the game of can I spot the dot as they come into land, although it doesn't look like I can because I have bad eyesight. Lucky, first one in. Bit of a screaming approach here as he comes in. Not quite the approved landing approach of aircraft, but you know. You can see there he is. That smoky trail, indicative of the JF-17 with its MiG-29 derived engine, or I believe it is just a MiG-29 engine. Definitely smoky rolling coal. Perhaps looking to do an overhead brake here, indeed, if I were to guess. You can see the Viper and the Hornet coming in first for their landing. Yep. 3-ship in the back, the 2 Vipers and their Hornet trying to make their first landing. Perhaps a bit of a formation landing, we will see here. Oh, perhaps maybe that first Viper's decided he doesn't want to try it. A little bit of interesting landings here, some of them more indicative of a cloudy weather. That is an interesting maneuver. I've never seen that one before. But, you know, I guess if you need to burn off speed, they might be coming in too fast. Sorting themselves out for landing. They've definitely got a bit of time to get down to the runway. Once these first PTF pilots get their nose wheels down, we will go ahead and play the trailer once again as we let the teams give some time to reset, get themselves back in their jets, rearmed and ready, and we'll get back in with the second round. Of course, PTF has to confirm their victory. Looks like they might with 3 ships looking to land at the same time, the 2 Vipers and Hornets. This could be quite the nice landing here, and it looks like it. Everybody's got their own line on the runway. Let's just watch them touch in nice and kiss. We'll let PTF cut ever so early, as I believe this Viper got itself to wing in the dirt, but 3 Vipers, 3 aircraft, 2 Vipers, and a Hornet landed. The last 2 aircraft coming in. A fantastic job from PTF. And that will be PTF's victory in round 1. Go ahead and give that to him there. First round goes to PTF. Go ahead and check that trailer real quick, and we'll be back with you guys in about 3 minutes for round 2.
And we're back.
Ready for round 2. PTF versus Wolf Pack. Phoenix Task Force. That's what PTF stands for. We'll see how they change their minds. Both teams now slotting themselves in, getting a bit of time to situate out. Well, normally this is the part where I'd ask my co-streamer what they thought about the first round. They thought could be improved and perhaps what tactics they like to see. And unfortunately, I don't have that co-streamer. The downside of having to moderate 2 concurrent tac matches. So what to talk about? Well, let's talk about what Wolfpack can do to win this next round. Now, this is assuming PTF decides that, hey, look, if it works, it's not broken and there's no need to fix it. Wolfpack maintains their aggression pretty well. And they definitely either have some communication internally as players start to get themselves a little bit dragged to tell people to turn cold. And I think perhaps they get a little bit too turn cold. I think against a grinder, there's really only 2 ways that Wolfpack can take this for a win. Wolfpack can either totally change up their playstyle and go into a grinder of their own, forcing PTF to enter this fight at a lower energy state, firing missiles out, knowing that, look, if we don't fire, they're not going to fire. We've just got 2 grinders here, and it becomes a fuel game, and we don't want to fight a fuel game. We got to do something. So that's one way that Wolfpack could throw a monkey wrench into PTF's plan. And the other way is to just maintain aggression. Rather than turning cold, they might have to bonsai a little bit. Now, what is a bonsai? A bonsai, as it might sound, is a little bit of a more reckless approach of a tactic rather than in the grinder where players turn cold and are supported. In a bonsai, you want to maintain heat. You want to stay at least 90 degrees nose on. So you have 180 degrees of turn to stay hot, unlike the 360 you have in a grinder, but you're always keeping the aggression on. Now, you can go into a crank, you can go into a notch. If you really need to, you can reset, but for the most part, you always want to maintain that push. Now, of course, grinder and bonsai, it's basically like one person's got a spear and one person's got a shield. These are tactics that were meant to fight each other, and it can really come down to pilot skill, weapon emplacement, speed, altitude, all of the minor details, what aircraft you're flying in, where you're flying that aircraft, how high you are, how good you were with your energy when you launched, how much energy you spent in missile defense. That's really where it starts to come down to who's going to win a grinder versus a bonsai. There are a couple other tactics that could be employed. They could try to skirt around the side. Now, we have not really seen a daisy chain employed, but a daisy chain would be if Wolfpack comes in, say they choose to maneuver left. Now, depending on the battlefield, they would choose their maneuver, direction based on where PTF is. Say they choose to maneuver left. They fire their missiles, they crank left, they get there, missiles go active, they go into a notch, which is flying 90 degrees onto true perpendicular to the aircraft they're flying on, or at this distance, it might be referred to as the beam, get themselves into the beam, but then turn back in hot, continuing to skirt to the left. What would this do for them? Well, right now, PTF is setting up 3 grinders, and they're all facing Wolfpack, right, as they come in. But if Wolfpack is able to skirt around, they can reset the fight dynamic to where they're now looking at 1 grinder at a time. Now, PTF can respond to this by changing up their grinder or by switching into a different tactic, but it might force PTF out of that grinder, and that could be something worth trying here for Wolfpack. Of course, we'll have to see what Wolfpack chooses to do themselves. PTF, on the other hand, look, that grinder worked out really, really well. There's no need to change what worked. I think we can expect to see much the same tactics out of them as they get themselves here. Let's go ahead and take a look at the jets. Now, of course, Wolfpack will be all in Vipers again between the rounds. The teams are not allowed to change what aircraft they are in. Once they've made the choice, that is theirs. They cannot change it. What they can do is change their loadouts. Now, Wolfpack, I believe, will largely run the same loadout. That's almost your only option in the Viper, of course, here at Satac. You are slightly limited in your loadout. No AIM-9Xs. Those missiles are just a bit too good. You can use 120 Charlies, as we've seen slung all over today, but you are limited to 4 of them. In fact, whatever missile you choose, you can only carry 4 active missiles. So 4 SD-10s, 4 Charlies of the 120 model. You can... There's no other Charlie, is there? The only other Charlie missile I can think of is the AIM-9C, and well, that's not in-game. And it's also not an active missile, it's a semi-active. So it's completely pointless. You can take 4 Charlies. You could take Bravos if you wanted, but why would you? And you can also take 4 R-77s. Of course, the R-77, the Russian semi-active missile. We will not be seeing that here today, as there are no Russian aircraft here firing missiles. Ow. While the Vipers might stay largely the same, one thing to take note and be interested in is what is PTF going to do? Those TALDs that they brought really were not that useful. But they're doing it again. In fact, they're choosing to bring perhaps more TALDs, or, well, maybe they're changing up their tactics, perhaps talking right now between their 2 jets. Hey, this is what we should do, or no, I think we should do this, or this didn't work. Of course, they don't have a ton of time between rounds to try to work out what went down, and really, they don't have quite as much information as we do. But I think we will see 4 TALDs on each of their Hornets again. Their employment of the TALDs, it wasn't my favorite. That's something PTF could work on. Now, it wasn't bad by any means. It was an effective attempt, but we've seen TALDs used multiple times throughout this competition, and when they're really used best is almost right where PTF used them. Throwing them into the fight, trying to get some confusion, making people react to that missile, that TALD, that duck, trying to, get a missile out there. Oh, is that the thing I need to fire on? And you can do that, but I think the mistake that PTF made was that they would fire out 2 TALDs at the same time on the same course and heading, and then turn cold. And that's really easy to spot on a radar, especially the Vipers have a very good top-down data link page. Their HTS, right? HSD, their HSD. Very good data link, of course. Each team does have an E3A that can cover the entire field here, so we are well within data link range. When those ducks were popped out, they hang up right there in the altitude. E3s pick them up, send that information to the Vipers, and you're really easily able to tell, hey, look, these things are coming towards us. That thing went away. Well, unless the aircraft just split into 3 smaller aircraft, reality says that those 2 missiles, they're probably TALDs. We can ignore them, and I think that's what Wolfpack was able to do. I think things that PTF could do here to really change that up. Fire a TALD, come in through your turn, fire another TALD. Get them in 2 different directions. That might be able to get a little bit more of a question here. And maybe what you're trying to do in this method is, look, that's the TALD, and this was me. I fired the TALD and then turned and flew this direction. In reality, they're both TALDs. Perhaps you just fire 1 TALD out and try to go cold there. I don't know if a TALD out of a grinder, though, is really the right placement. Wolfpack is looking at the radars, looking at their data links, looking at their situational awareness information, and they're expecting to see you go into that grinder. So seeing something just come in a straight line out, slowly lose speed and altitude, I just don't think it's super effective. So it's definitely on PTF here to see if they can get an improved usage out of those TALDs. Of course, now PTF dealing with the fact that this airport, you do need to use the runway as the taxiway. A benefit that Wolfpack will, of course, not have to deal with. Not that that actually has any impact on the fight. It's just a little annoying. Wolfpack here getting all of their Vipers ready to go. PTF guy on wrong team. Oh. No, John Dog's a Wolfpack player. What do you mean PTF guy on wrong team? That is for the admins, not for me. Let's go ahead and look at these nice pilots as they make their way to the runway. Looks like they are once again working in their 2 ships setup. I think we can expect to see Wolfpack do. Looks like largely they might be trying more or less the same tactic as last time. Wait, can't you program a route into a TALD? I do not believe these TALDs can have route programmed. I think these are the dumb TALDs that simply fly in a straight line. If you could program a route into the TALD, that would really throw a bit of a wrench. And it might make that TALD seem like more of a threat. But I do not believe that that is something that can be done with the TALDs we have in DCS today. Yeah, I must say I do like the Wolfpack Vipers. I think they look good. Not to say I don't like the PTF Vipers. I think everybody's custom liveries look quite good. In fact, I can't really think of a team's liveries I don't like. They're all pretty unique, pretty well sorted, well aligned, well made, but I think they each express a little bit of that team's personality in there. I like that in PTF here. The aircraft slightly different, right? Now the Viper looks a little bit different than the Hornet. The Hornet looks a little bit different than the Jeff. They're all their own airframe. I think that adds even a bit more individuality to them as they get here sorted up on the runway. Of course, here comes the next Hornet with the 2 Jeffs ready to make their way in. Little bit of time to kill. If you have no food near you, if you need a snack, well, go get it now. Go get yourself some water. Stand up, stretch, rest your eyes for a little second, because the fight will happen soon, but not yet. You've got a little bit of a break. If this had commercials, this would be a good time for a commercial break. Seems not very useful if you can't at least delay a turn. Yep. I don't know if I think that the talents are very useful. I think they can be used well, but even at their best, I think that's like saying, well, sure, the Sparrow can be used well, but, I mean, it's not going to be as good as NAMRAM. So, I think, yeah, the talent, not the best choice. I wouldn't take it. I think I'd rather have either less drag on the airplane, more fuel, more ordnance, just something else than the TALDs. And it looks like Wolfpack will be the first ones to get ready here as they work their way onto the runway. Did they update the Jeff in the recent update? That's a great question. I do not know. Well, it's a good thing to talk about the Jeff. The Jeff is a bit of an aircraft with a bit of a history. Good aircraft. But it is the lowest RCS aircraft in DCS. It actually has another benefit, which we learned about, which is that the TALD don't actually trick the data link on the Jeff. The data link on the Jeff can display airborne decoys and does. So TALDs have almost no use against a team with good communication and a Jeff of their own. Has those SD-10 missiles, which are perhaps the best, arguably the best active missile in the game. They're extremely fast. You can see how quickly they tear through the sky. Quite a bit faster than the AIM-120. Now, if the AIM-120 has better terminal guidance or a better radar, better notch filter, that's all up to people who know a bit more than me. But it's still a very good missile. They're capable of being used in evenly matched scenarios, and doesn't make the Jeff overpowered. It doesn't mean the SD-10 is overpowered. Both aircraft are how they are, and the pilots who fly them and pilots who use those missiles, well, they have to know their airplane, and they have to know their missiles, and if they do, they can easily use it to their advantage and better than the opponent who doesn't. AIM-9 versus SD-10, no, not at all. AIM-120 versus SD-10. The AIM-9 versus SD-10 is definitely in the SD-10's benefit. The AMRAAM versus the SD-10. And let's take a look here. Latest update from Eagle Dynamics to the open beta, which of course we are on. And no, I do not see any difference between the old and new Jeff, they do look the same. Oop! Looks like we lost one of the Wolfpack players. Did we? Where did the Wolfpack player go? Oh, there he goes. We lost him there. Unfortunate. Let's see if he can get himself sorted back in. Of course, PTF has only just gotten themselves lined up on the runway. Once again, doing a bit of a staggered takeoff here. I think this is largely the same deployment we saw last time. We'll see 3 aircraft set up in a beam with another 3 aircraft behind them, trying to set up 3 different grinders of each separate aircraft type. PTF is ready. Wolfpack gonna wait for their guy to reload. How's it going? Enough just back from watching England get spanked by Ireland for the Grand Slam. Well, 88th Maury, of course, local resident Ireland man. I'm sure that was great fun for you to watch. We have been well here. The first round went in PTF's favor. They were able to set up a pretty competent grinder throughout the entire fight, burn a lot of missiles from Wolfpack, and really play almost the same game that we saw InSky do. Play passive, play defensive, really try to get that aggression burnt out like you're having a young puppy run around or something. Make sure that all the energy that Wolfpack brings at the start of those fights and all the aggression slowly chips away at their capabilities until you're allowed to bring your full force to bear against them when they're in a diminished state. And so we're waiting to see what Wolfpack does this time around to counter that. Unfortunately, Wolfpack did lose one of their pilots. So we're just waiting for that last Viper to get ready. Now, good thing the Viper does have a relatively quick startup, and it looks like, yep, they just sorted that out. The Viper that they lost was here where Joe Bob is, and Joe Bob just rolled up front, letting that last Viper get here, so we'll give them a little bit of time to get their final pilot sorted out. I think I'll take this time to pour myself a little drink. Sure, soda's not the best thing to drink when your mouth's getting a little bit dry from talking, but hey. Drink water the rest of the week. I can have a little bit of a treat, can't I? And besides, the rest of this is for my delayed St. Patrick's Day celebrations. Of course, that was yesterday for me, but knowing that I had a responsibility to attend to today, I decided to keep myself nice and sober until after. That way I can give you guys the best Satac match I can. Might take this moment once again, a good time to thank the sponsors of Satac. Of course, our sponsors are Heatblower, Eagle Dynamics, Magnitude 3, Razbam, Lot ATC, and TacView. My brain short-circuited. I was hammered yesterday. Unfortunately, I had to wake up early. Early for me on a weekend for these matches. Although, mostly that's because I was scared of redoing what I did last week, where I got the time wrong. Uh-oh. Looks like Drundog having connection issues here. Have to see what the play is there. We'll see what PTF is talking about as they're sitting on their runway. I'd love to have the ability, and it'd be unfair to the teams, it'd give away a lot of their OPSEC, a lot of their secrecy, but it would be nice if I could have one player on each team or just sneak in real quick and get a listen like they do in the sports games. Here where they're talking about getting a mental picture for what their plans are. Doing a drink miss with friends tonight. Oh, it's good to see that I am not the only one saving my... He's reboot. Sorry for the delay. All right. Looks like PTF is willing to wait. That's a good thing. Good sportsmanship out of PTF. I have yet to stop drinking. I'll be sober Thursday, but not next Thursday. Well, Maury, you're Irish. No one expected you to be sober. A lot of good sportsmanship. I've always been pleased to see after teams. For those of you who aren't in the Satac Discord, of course, if you can get the link there for them, tech, you should. Those of you who aren't in the Satac Discord, after the fight, it's a little bit of banter between the teams, but always good sportsmanship and always teams saying, hey, look, we didn't win today, but we learned. We've got a good idea what to do. We know what to practice. You know, we are coming for you. That mentality that we saw out of 343 against Kiap, 51st Kiap and 100th on their first fight, where 343 lost and said, look, we got a message for you. You won this round, but you're not going to win the next. We've seen that manifested and continued by the different teams throughout, which is always good to see. And of course, that good sportsmanship continuing along with PTF, letting Wolfpack spend a little bit of extra time saying, hey, the guy has to reboot. We're sorry about it, but look, we want the fight to be fair, and PTF wants the fight to be fair too. They're willing to spend the time to let him get back in. All right. Let's see here. I've sent a little birdie out to tell me, hey, what about the other match? Of course, if we go look at our groups real quick while the last setup happens, we're, of course, having our Group D fight today, but that is not the only one. Group A, ETF versus FTQ, also happening over at Airshow's channel. Go watch that if you aren't at the same time, and if you can't, make sure you catch the vid at the end. From what I hear, FTQ unfortunately lost their first round, so first round victory going to ETF as they get into their second round. Probably fighting right now as we wait for our guys to get themselves sorted up and get their fight on. And it looks like while we do this, we'll just go ahead and back to DCS for the fight. Looks like Groovy Jerky of Wolfpack saying, look, guys, if we'll give him 2 more minutes. If he can't make it, we will launch with 5. And PTF says, that's good by us. We are okay. Of course, why wouldn't you be? It's not every day you get to have the unfair fight from the start. Not unfair because of anybody schniving or anything. Just simple numbers. 6 versus 5. 6 people. There's more of them. But Wolfpack says, look, we're ready to take the fight to you. We'll do it with 5. So good camaraderie between the two teams is always good to see as they get ready here. So 2 more minutes and the planes will be rolling. Of course, we talk a lot about what different teams could do, what they've done well, what they could do better. The only way for us to know the future is to actually live it. We won't know who wins until they win it. Wolfpack could come back. They could have been taking this time, a little bit of extra time, think about what they're doing, think about their decisions, fine-tune their tactics. They might come back and set us here for a 1-all match going into a 3rd overtime round. And Drug Dog connects in. Can he get there in time? You know, one thing to note, and of course, I assume that both the PTF players and the Wolfpack players do know this, but as you can hear, the jets are burning fuel on the ground, so they will have to make sure that they rearm their jets before they take off if they want the maximum amount of fuel. There's nothing wrong with that. There's actually quite a few different tactics for how they could get themselves just to the runway. I know it sounds silly, but when you're in a high-definition simulator, full fidelity like DCS is, from the moment you spawn in till the end of the fight, there are different tactics. Everybody has their own different way of doing things, and they've all got different reasons. For whatever reason, in DCS, one of the limitations that we have is the fuel tanks on your jet. When you talk to the ground crew and say, hey, rearm me, they won't fill your fuel tanks up, not the drop pods. They'll fuel the internal ones, but they won't fuel the external ones. So if you've got the fuel tanks on, you've got to do the, all right, take them off, now put them back on. It just adds a little bit extra time. You can do one tactic that I have seen is you taxi out with no fuel tanks on, just burning internal fuel. You hold short right before you're about to take off, and you go, all right, rearm me, full fuel, full tanks, get it in there, Get yourself ready. Give yourself the best chance to win your fight. Of course, then we've talked about how they line up on the runway, how they take off, how quickly they take off, what they do in their initial turn. Everything is a plan. Everything is going into their overall strategy of how they're going to win the fight. It's always interesting to see. I'll take it easy. Don't stress on the runway. Nope. I am fully faithed up that these guys are ready. Drug Dog starting to roll here. Got that Viper started nice and quick. Probably doing the last of his helmet alignments on his roll out. I don't get why it's dumb. I don't know either, Mika. Perhaps it's just a simple error. Perhaps it's it doesn't quite work with the way that they see the ordnance and the drop tanks, and perhaps it's realistic. I don't know. But I don't mind it, personally. I'm not a huge on the boat of, look, it's got to be exactly realistic. It can't be anything but realism. You know, it's always good to be as close to real as possible, but at the end of the day, this is a simulator where we fly classified airplanes. We only are going to get so close. And I think it's just interesting to see how different people approach. Look, these are the game's limitations. This is what I have to work around. This is my jet. How do I fly it? So far as these pilots are concerned, every single match, their jet is realistic, right? It is the jet that they have to fly. They don't have the jet they want, right? There's that old saying, you go to war with the army you have, not the army you want. Well, you fly the fight with the jet you have, not the jet you want. Well, looks like Drug Dog rolling up to the runway here. Of course, PTF is all ready. Wolfpack also already on their end, minus their one pilot. I think the tension in the air would be palatable at this point. You wouldn't even need to cut it with a knife. It's so taut, it might snap at any time, as these two teams are ready and waiting to go for each other's throats. PTF looking to secure this match in their favor. Wolfpack looking to take it back. Hopefully the Viper up here, gets that sorted out. Wheel chocks on the runway is a new one. I have not seen that one before, but I'm sure Falcon's enjoying the time. We do see, actually, PTF taking largely the same loadouts. Got that targeting pod on their lead Viper once again, and this time on their second Viper. You can actually see PTF here taking the different approach with this lead Viper, adding its fuel tanks on now, whereas that Viper over there had them on from the beginning. What that Viper could be doing, of course, because the Viper has centerline fuel tank, which is a very high drag tank. Every store you put on the aircraft is going to cause drag, but on the Viper, that centerline tank is murder, which means it is the first thing to go. They can put that centerline tank on. They can go, yeah, it's fine that I'm burning fuel out of my centerline tank, because at the end of the day, I know that I'm going to take the tanks off the moment I get to altitude. This is just to get me up there. Saying a little bit of a Morse code signal. Wolfpack is ready. We will let PTF let us know that they're ready, of course, as they finish their rearms. All in fairness, and get the fight going. PTF ready. Wolfpack ready. Let's go ahead and spend, because I get to control when the fight starts. Let's just spend a little bit of time getting you guys some nice pictures for their initial takeoffs, and we'll get the fight going. And on their marks, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fights on. We'll see Wolfpack probably once again tear out, taking their ships up very fast. We'll still have time to watch the PTF takeoff. Probably going to take their time, make sure their jets get in the air where they want them. There's no right or wrong way to get into the air. It's just whichever one works best for you. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Oh, but he is able to make it in the air. We'll have to check for battle damage. Got himself caught in the wake turbulence. You know, we mentioned before that Wolfpack likes to take it risky, and that can be the danger. Get caught in the wake turbulence, get thrown out to the side. The Viper is squirrely on the ground, a little bit of high torque engine, narrow landing gear. As you can see, all the Vipers kind of wiggling back and forth a bit. And oh no, almost had it happen again there, but it looks like that's probably Drug Dog there was able to get it under control. All the Wolfpack pilots up in the sky. PTF still making their way down the runway. Final 2 aircraft ready here. Watch that Hornet go, and then, of course, the Jeff. Get themselves airborne, and we'll see their initial formation. See if anything's changed, or if they're playing the same game, saying, look, it worked, don't fix it. And Wolfpack saying, I think we can make minor adjustments, but the whole idea is still solid. We will have to see, regardless of what the outcome is. Both teams playing great matches. As this last Jeff takes off, we zoom in there, we can actually see, of course, not running a centerline tank. That is the jamming pod. Jamming pod, I think the best jamming pod in the game, perhaps tie between the JF-17's jammer, as we continually see Jeff pilots bring that with them, and with the F-16's long pod. The long jamming pod on the F-16 is very good, but it's heavy, it's high drag, and it means you can't take a fuel pile on there. So I think that's why some of the Vipers have chosen not to take it, whereas the Jeff's pod is a lot smaller, more condensed, not as draggy, probably a little bit less of an performance impact. Let's go ahead and take a look. Bring the TAC view up. These pilots getting ready here. Of course, Wolfpack looks like they're doing more or less the same. They're coming out as a unit, but a bit spreaded here. Of course, this is a beautiful formation here with Pale Rider and Groovy Jerky. If PTF isn't paying attention, they might even mistake that as a single target. On the other hand, PTF, how are they playing this out? Looks like somewhat similar. Getting those 3 grinders ready and ready to see if Wolfpack does the same move. This time with the F-16s on the north end, Jeffs in the center, and Hornets on the left. That is not the north. That is the west. I know directions, I promise. As we get an idea about our altitude here, more or less, you know, same altitude. The team's still climbing up here. Highest 23,000, 21,000 players getting up into altitude. Over here, 22,000 or so. So no altitude advantage is clear yet. Now, a lot of the aircrafts that get great use out of high altitude, I mean, every aircraft will be getting better missile ranges out of higher altitude airplanes. But things like the F-14, the Su-27, and that family, the F-15, they can really pull the most out of getting up at altitude, whereas things like the F-16, you actually kind of get an issue of like, hey, I'm at altitude, I'm fast, but my little wings, I've got no lift, I'm starting to fall out of the air. But as we heard there, a little beep, Red takes control of the battle area first. That's PTF first in, followed shortly after by Wolfpack. Bring this up to the top view and start to see as they do. Yep, PTF saying, look, it worked. Getting their aircraft in, keeping their spread, slowly climbing up. Wolfpack deciding, hey, look, we're going to enter the fight the same way. And Wolfpack is good about this. They like to keep their hands in their pockets. They don't show their cards until the time is ready. They don't want to give the other team more time to react to them, although when you're in your second fight, I mean, you can see here, look, they're coming at you. They're expecting the same tactic here. This is really where Wolfpack can sort of throw a wrench in. And perhaps Roller over here is what that wrench will be. Let's go ahead and take a look at these aircraft. Of course, we do have to double check One of those Vipers had a little bit of a rough takeoff. Are any of Wolfpack's airplanes battle damaged, or was the pilot able to maintain control of the aircraft? Certainly looks like it if that is the second set of Vipers. Oh, look at this nice formation here. Not quite fighting wing, a little bit of trail. Now dropping back. Not the highest on their team. That, of course, going to that contrail in the back. And turning on the frame lag switch, apparently. Not sure what that was. Wolfpack getting ready to rumble here. You can see, look at how high and fast that guy in the back is. Of course, that guy in the back is Battle, or nope, probably Joe Bob. 32,000 feet, gets rid of that center line tank and says, we are going to be cooking it. We're going to be cooking it so much so, I forgot to go back and look at DCS. I apologize for that. Everybody just sat there and watched nothing. We missed, of course, this here. We have this nice two-ship here. Got themselves conning, and way up there you can see him screaming by so fast that the multi-threading DCS client is almost unable to keep up with him. So fast way back there, these guys staying a bit closer. Looks like maybe a similar deployment here, flying with two ships. They've got a spread here. These guys could go into a grinder. These guys looking to, hey, let's get out on the flank. Let's start doing maybe a bit of what we were talking about between the rounds. Let's start making that grinder fall apart from the core. The Falcons here, Fazel and Falcon. Wonder which came first, the pilot or the jet. I think it was the jet, but who knows? Maybe Falcon is the namesake of the jet, although I doubt that. 32,000. Looks like these aircraft here, this Jeff with its centerline fuel tank, only one Jeff has the jammer, going out to meet here Joe Bob. High altitude, 37,000 is really, really quite high. That's an E3. That is a JF-17 that I meant to look at. He is screaming out there, those nice little skinny fuel tanks not causing too much drag on his aircraft. I mean, they're still there. He will still feel the weight, but burning through that fuel, knows, look, I'm going to jump the fuel tanks. The moment I get in the fight, I might as well use the fuel up early rather than have fuel in the tanks when I get rid of them. Screaming in here. Actually, Predator looks like closing the distance here. Predator going actually almost as fast as Gory. You know, you can see not as much air up here and having to get that engine cooking. But, hey, that high altitude will get those SD-10s way far out. And perhaps PTF is going, look, the grinder game works, but we need to do something. We need to get first missiles out. And we do. We do see, like I was about to say, that SD-10 comes ripping off that aircraft. And you can see this thing is going to loft way up into the sky. Let's go ahead and take a look at what that'll look like in the TAC view. You can see just how high this missile's going here. Gory was actually sub-Mach perhaps when he launched. Missile screams out, looks like Groovy Jerky and Pale Rider immediately turn defensive. A return missile here out of Joe Bob, but at who? You know, no one's really reacted to it yet, and perhaps they don't know they've got it. These guys probably perhaps getting an RWR indication from Gory. Maybe launching an RWS rather than TWS, meaning they'll know all the way, or perhaps just saying, hey, look, it's time for us to go into the beam, and it ended up working pretty well, although I would say that they definitely had a way. I think they did know this SD-10 was coming, might have even seen it visually. Of course, contrails are easy to track in this missile. While it is sailing, it looks like it's no longer sailing true. That missile out from Joe Bob did force these guys to turn defensive and meant that SD-10 lost track, and so it's just going to sail on overhead, not be a threat. And of course, the return missile was more of a maneuvering missile. It didn't really cause too much of an issue. We'll check back with TAC view when the next missiles are launched. PTF looks like they're starting to form a bit of a grinder. Wolfpack over here looks like they're forming a large grinder, really. Some sort of circle fight here. This is a lot more defensive than we've seen Wolfpack play up until now. Pill Rider and Groovy chose to burn all of their altitude down to 10,000 feet. Now, of course, they're climbing back up as they're in cover. They're safe. They're able to do so. Predator looking to be aggressive. Kahlua also aggressive. Looks like they're maintaining look. Hey, let's get a mobile grinder almost. We'll keep 8-mile separation between us, which means I can then go defensive at wherever I need, and then you're already hot. It's a pretty good idea. In fact, it could work out well for them against Wolfpack, who tends to like to be the aggressive ones. We really haven't seen them on the back foot at the start of a match like this, but the altitude difference here between these two aircraft, 14,000 and 19,000 feet. It's not bad, but it's not 31,000 feet like Drug Dog has, and Drug Dog can certainly see both of these aircraft. Predator looks like maybe a slight descent, probably prepared for this missile out of Drug Dog here. It looks pretty good. And you can see there, ever so slightly, a little speck that I've lost. I did have, now it's gone into the clouds, a little speck of an F-18, that being, of course, the now defensive Predator. But look, hey, there's Kahlua, already ready to come fight it out, and we could be seeing more aggression here, you know? Once again, Roller's somewhat aggressive, but a lot of these pilots aren't following in. They've got one plane turned cold. They've got these three up here, you know, a bit separated out from their fight. That's a good 15 miles out. That really means that these guys can't support these two, and this would be a great time for Drug Dog, Roller, Groovy Jerk, and it looks like that might be what they're doing. Push this fight in. Kahlua turning it around though, says, all right, I'm starting to get out. Is it going to drag these people back? Another SD-10 here out of Gory. Missile screaming off. Isn't lofting as much. Doesn't need that much range as it tracks in. Who is it tracking on? Let's take a look at the TAC view at the same time. That SD-10 tracking on somebody, perhaps on Battle. It's screaming out. It's got the distance. We had a launch here from Groovy Jerky. 120 Charlie towards the fight. You know, Wolfpack is very good about, look, you fire a missile at us, now we're going to fire a missile at you. They even seem to be starting a bit of a grinder of their own. It looks like we are seeing two grinders fighting here, putting the ons into the hands of PTF to say, all right, you wanted to play the passive game, now come at us. Another SD-10 out here. This one is lofting, not super high speed here out of Lucky. Gets a return 120 from Drug Dog. Drug Dog turning into the crank. These two SD-10s, I didn't even notice this one at first. These two missiles are close. Drug Dog, you might not have enough. That missile well and defeated, but what about Drug Dog here? Turning defensive, dropping flares, trying their best to get away from the missiles, and it looks like they will. This left missile over here does have track, but it just doesn't have the speed to do anything. As a good defeat from Drug Dog. AIM-7P, that's an interesting choice out of one of the F-18s, the only aircraft here that have the AIM-7P. That missile had to scream up to altitude and is already defeated because Predator is in a grinder. 120 does chase Lucky down. Now Drug Dog defending another missile, perhaps defending this AIM-7, thinking it was an AIM-120. Could have been the intended tactic if it was working well. Another SD-10 out here. Believe this was the first one that we saw after Battle. As you can see, it's got almost no energy. Return missile here. We are seeing defensive play out of Wolfpack. Their grinders aren't quite as tight as PTF's. There's a little bit of play. This going on here is a little bit, I mean, you can kind of see there's a lot more maneuvering in here than there is on this side of the screen. But defensive play is something, and this is the first time we've seen this defensive play at a Wolfpack. It really goes to show that they watched that last fight. Well, they didn't watch it. They were in it. Oh, that's an interesting maneuver there, missile. In that last fight, they looked at the outcome. They said, why did it happen? And they thought it through and worked it back, and this is the situation they're in now. 120 here out of Groovy Jerky coming in, and Kahlua fires a return 120 here. Kahlua, lower altitude than Groovy Jerky. The missile doesn't have as much energy. As you can see, I mean, we're looking at a significant energy difference here between these two missiles. Kahlua needs to put a little bit more G's on, and now it's starting to turn cold. Kahlua now is going to defeat that missile. Roller firing another 120C out at who? Looks like that's 120C is out for Lucky. SD-10 and 120C out. Roller took their time getting into that defensive position. this could be a bit of a problem. We watch Roller's missile here in the live view as it tracks, and we can see that in the background. It's probably defeated, but Roller lets this 120 get pretty close to him. Does look like it's defeated. Drug Dog, you've got a missile inbound. You've got to do something about it, and Drug Dog eats it. Unfortunate. There is the first loss in the match. Drug Dog from Wolfpack is now a... Oh, hold on. We need to roll that back. Let's watch the instant replay because that is not the first loss. Or if it is, another one happened at the same time. Looks like Gory down here, low altitude. Unsure why. Runs it out. And maybe they see-fit into the ground. But it is a 5v5 fair match still between these two teams. How about that altitude advantage? It definitely looks like it's on the hand of Wolfpack. FPTF is definitely willing to spend their altitude early. We have got a conga line happening over here, though, as a number of these ducks go sailing through the sky. If I could take a look at one of them coming out here from Predator and Kahlua. All of these ducks at the same time. Looks like either all from Predator or from Predator and Kahlua. Well, Predator has none. They could all be from Predator. A little bit of spacing here. Probably not enough to cause confusion, though. And we can see here on TAC view, these missiles, yeah, these, well, AIM-120 here out of Pale Rider does look like it could be tracking on one of these ducks. Oh, perhaps one of these will do its job and drag a missile in. That's, you know, enough to make it worthy. We've got another missile here. Lower, looks like it could be chasing after Predator here, who has dropped lots of his altitude. And indeed, one duck does eat a missile. Another launch out here, straight across the fight. No, it is a high off bore sight, probably on Lucky. Lucky immediately turning back into the defensive. Indeed, that is definitely going for Lucky. That missile will not really have the energy required to track. Kahlua using those. This is a tactic that we did mention. Kahlua has fired out 1, 2, 3 ducks and now is kind of flying in. Not quite at the same speed. Quite a bit faster, in fact. But using that as a bit of a way, hey, look, let me get myself forward. But see, this is where I would do something a bit different. Kahlua rides in with the ducks and then turns out. Has support from Predator. Predator's hot and able to continue pushing that fight. You've got a decent distance between you guys, but they choose not to. Wolfpack fires this missile off here at Falcon. In the Falcon, he's low. That missile looks defeated. That is once again an E3. Missile looks defeated. Battle turns out cold once again. Joe Bob looks like aiming for Phasal here. And a 120C out of Joe Bob. This looks like it could be a bomb. No. Who is this for? It is soaring up in the sky. It doesn't look like it's got track on anybody. Unfortunate. That missile could have been sent for Phasal and could have had a serious threat. But the radar probably gets picked up by the RWR on the Jeff. In the AIM-120, as it didn't have a lock, it must be looking from launch. Does cause Phasal to go defensive, so it did do something. This is quite an interesting match. It's much more passive, a lot less aggressive than the first match, but we are seeing fantastic gameplay out of these teams. We're really seeing Wolfpack learning from their fights, which I'm just ecstatic to see. 120C out of Falcon, though, at Battle, climbs up to altitude, immediately goes for him. Battle, here's that RWR tone, drags that missile down. You can see fires a missile of his own, perhaps, or maybe that was a fuel tank. Something screaming past. We'll check that back on the TAC view. Battle able to easily pull that out, and let's run that back. That was a missile return of his own at Falcon. Missile does look to be defeated, however. Good out of both. Groovy Jerry and Kahlua firing 120s that will once again cross each other in the middle. Kahlua now has the altitude advantage at the moment, but I think Groovy Jerry launched from higher altitude. And what will that do? Looks like a defeat for both of them. Groovy Jerry probably the closest one to that missile, but yeah, as we can see there, missile goes into the into the ground trying to lead the jet and just unable. We are now in a 4v4 situation. Let's go ahead and watch these two missiles here. There's a possibility that, unfortunately for Wolfpack, their drug dog pilot was unable to maintain connection this match. Predator, you've got a missile nearby, and you're turning for it. Is it going to be enough? Oh, it is. It is enough. Does out-G the 120C, and it is dead. This missile also dead as well, out of energy and too low. Unfortunately, this missile has also run out of energy after sailing halfway across the map. It's a present for whoever's at Almanad, perhaps. Wow, Predator gets real close with this missile, but not close enough to kill. Means that Predator does survive. Now, we are at low altitude. We are in a 4... Nope, we aren't. Still in a 5v4. Drug Dog was the only one. Oh, no! Oh, no, Roller! Oh, we're going to watch that back. Roller comes in and missorts, finds Groovy Jerky, and puts a 9 right into it, followed by a 120, guarantees the kill on his teammate. That is not good for them. Not only does that lose 2 missiles, it loses the entirety of Groovy Jerky, who has been a front runner on Wolfpack. Now realizing his mistake and well outside of where he wants to be, Roller is running Kahlua. Predator coming in to try and get the kill. Pale Rider has to scream in overhead, try and get into safety. Roller now having to deal with the fact that over his friend's dead body, there's a missile coming out for him. It's right there. Does it have him? Oh, it might. It does. That is another kill on the board for PTF, putting it down to a 2v5, which is unfortunate. A horrible missort there and the loss of a teammate. Awful, awful, awful. This A120C does fly under Pale Rider by quite a bit. Another 120 Charlie here out at Predator. Oh, this one could be good, though. Predator's time might be up. Nowhere to run. Can they notch the missile? Nope. Maybe. Oh, that was interesting. They were able to notch the missile. They were able to mitigate the amount of damage. Everywhere. Okay. Well, I guess sometimes you do. Missile definitely was close. We saw the splash damage, but that wasn't close enough. Now, Pale Rider running out cold. Lucky low, climbing with the gates on. Only got the heaters left. We saw a lot of SD-10s get used by the team here. We'll watch Lucky as Lucky chases down Pale Rider in the live view. TAC view, we're watching Joe Bob here now defending from Faisal's 120. Once again, low altitude, not a lot of place to run. Has to go into the notch. Can Joe Bob do it? We see that missile launch out on Pale Rider. At the same time, Pale Rider does eat that missile. Does Joe Bob eat this one? Joe Bob gets close, but the missile is defeated. You can see the wreckage there as the kill on the... Oh, and somewhere in there, Joe Bob ate it. Oh, it looks like another AIM-120 out of Falcon, up high, and yeah, there's just not much you can do there. Well, that leaves PTF in a standing of 5 airplanes up against none. They control the battle area, and it is time for them to head home. While they get themselves sorted out, let's go ahead and watch that TAC view back. That was something. As we see here, we'll run the whole thing back. I do like to watch it in reverse a little bit. You can see those talons actually managed to stay up for a long time. We saw a different approach from Wolfpack here, spreading out into a little bit thinner columns, not as much distance, and playing a defensive game. Letting PTF be the aggressive ones here. Bleeding out a missile there. That first SD-10 launch probably meant to force Wolfpack to change their tactics. Doesn't work because Wolfpack has already changed their tactic from the start. Predator tries to get out, launch on Predator from Drug Dog. Next one up, missile out, SD-10. Second one from Gory, once again, easily defeated. An SD-10 on Drug Dog. This one's a little bit closer, but does defeat it. Gets his 20 out on Lucky. This was the time where, once again, 2 missiles fired at the same time. Probably a bit of a mistake on Lucky's part. A little bit of a blunder. Almost, I mean, you can see here this missile really trying for him. but it's not got enough speed. Drug Dog able to defeat that. The aim 7 from space that didn't need to exist. Another 120 out here, and now a lot of these missiles, they're not connecting, but the players are forced to react on both teams, and Wolfpack, rather than being super aggressive, playing a bit safe here. At this point, we've already lost Drug Dog, and where? And this was it. Drug Dog comes back up, and a missile out from Lucky. You know, even with this defensive missile here, Drug Dog, unfortunately, unable to notch the missile, doesn't hear it fast enough, doesn't react soon enough. It is Drug Dog down. Next kill is, of course, Gory, who C-fits perhaps into the ground or disconnects, but the dropping of the ordnance does lead me to believe that they did C-fit a little bit. Continue to see fighting here, but keeping in a grinder. We see the big duck spam there and does almost nothing. Now, this was a missed opportunity here. Joe Bob has every right to have killed Faisal, and it is just unfortunate, especially Faisal choosing this time. Had Joe Bob had the right lock set up on Faisal, this would have been a death sentence. This missile has all the energy it needs, drops right on top of Faisal, and there's almost nothing you can do. It's the same thing that we see happen at the end of the match. We see, of course, Battle exchanging with Falcon, and then here is the problem section. Groovy Jerky in, Roller in, Groovy Jerky in again, Roller out. Now Roller comes back around, and I've got an aircraft right in front of me, and all of a sudden, oh shit, aim 9, close on a cold target, not enough time to IFF. In fact, so little time to IFF, does it again. Aim 9 doesn't get the target, but the aim 120 does. Unfortunately, Roller taking out one of his teammates, and this is where you can see just how big of a draw this was on their chances to win. Groovy Jerky and Roller are in a great position. They are getting flanked here, but Battle 1-1 and Joe Bob pushing these guys, forcing them to be reactionary. Predator and Kahlua, they can't be unengaged targets because Groovy Jerky and Roller were right here, but watch, the moment Groovy Jerky goes down, Roller is now suddenly in a 1v4. Even though these two teammates are here to support, even though Pale Rider immediately turns back in. This is great. The problem is Roller doesn't have the support. Roller is 1. You can see, rather than spending this time, come out here, could have been climbing and gaining altitude and gaining speed, has to bleed it off to do this 180 degrees of turn, and is now just in the coffin corner. There's not much that you can do, and of course, Kahlua's aim 120 at a range as close as that. There's really nothing that you can do. That is fatal. And then we have the unfortunate reality of Battle 1-1 saying, all right, I got to make up for that. I got to be aggressive. Well, unfortunately, Lucky chooses that moment down here, fires that SD-10, and again, it's not quite a bomb drop. It's not at all a bomb drop, but there's just not much you can do from a close-in engagement like that. The active missiles meant to go out long range are lethal. Roller then eating that missile from before. Now we have Pale Rider, high altitude. Pale Rider, had he sorted Kula, probably could have gotten the kill. Joe Bob probably could keep Predator out, probably could keep Lucky out, might even be able to keep Falcon depending on how many missiles he has. You know, this isn't bad, despite the fact that they are outnumbered. What they do have is altitude, and they have a lot of it, right? Look how high they are in comparison. They can drop these bombs. Their missiles have a high chance of being guaranteed kills. But they choose to go cold here, and this is, I think, the next and final mistake that they'll make. Rather than pushing this home, they're in a disadvantageous situation. They really don't have the time to be careful. They've got to get kills. 2v5, they don't have time to go in cold like this and drag out missiles, and all it does is put them in a worse position. It lets Faisal, who could have been engaged by Joe Bob, but wasn't, right? No return missile here from Predator that Joe Bob needs to defend. Joe Bob's missile probably would have connected had Joe Bob kept a bit longer track instead of turning cold, although it might have been Pitbull off the rails. This missile long since dead. Faisal then comes back in and is able to press into Joe Bob. Joe Bob then is forced to defend that. Falcon once again, because unengaged bandits get kills, gains altitude and just drops that bomb right on to Joe Bob. Of course, at the same time, Lucky chasing down Pale Rider, who wouldn't have this opportunity. this is not a situation. This could be a trade at worst, but Pale Rider right here locks Lucky. Lucky's probably got to either go into his brain and go, all right, look, do I want to try and trade or do I just want to be alive? And this is almost a guaranteed kill for Pale Rider, but Pale Rider turns it cold, chased down by Lucky, comes back in, goes, all right, I got to go shoot missiles. But Lucky is like, yeah, go shoot missiles at what? I have been chasing you this whole time. Now I'm up here and just P5, E2, PL5, E2, right into Pale Rider. Of course, ending the match in PTF's favor. Lucky deciding to have fun over there. We'll go ahead and take a look at these guys as they make their way into landing. Quite loud there. As we get close, this nice formation here, the 3-ship. Watch them get in and have some closing thoughts. They're starting to do their funness. Having a grand old time. Celebrating their victory. Looks like Lucky and Kula also coming back in. I keep getting myself confused. This camouflage does have one huge thing going for it, and it is that I consistently think those little gray holes are bullet damage. So from about here, my brain says, oh man, somebody took high explosive damage, but nope. Simply the camouflage, a good camouflage at that. And the last set here, the 3-ship coming down, ready to come in for a landing. Not as many as they had last time. Wolfpack was able to reassess the situation and get themselves a kill, which is good on them. It's what we want to see out of these teams. And showing a new tactic like that, Wolfpack showing that they can adapt, they can learn, they are still a threatening team. Just because we have a lot of these matches that end up going 2-0, guys, it's not indicative of a skill difference. The better team does win, but it's not as big as say, oh, it's 2-0, it was a knockout. It's not. These matches are really, really close. We saw just a few blunders there from Wolfpack that ended up causing them the fight, and that's not to say that there were no blunders from PTF. Unfortunately, it's just the same problem Wolfpack has had a couple of times in this competition. This is a beautiful turn here they're executing, by the way. Because of Wolfpack's strange approach to aggression, they have a consistent issue of being able to persecute on those mistakes that the opposing team makes. And perhaps as we see them evolve as a team, they are a very new team. This is their first time here in Satac. As we see them evolve on their tactics and learn more and more, spend more time fighting other players, I think that we will see a powerhouse emerge out of them if they keep it up. But, I mean, PTF doing very well as well, of course. Have a little bit of heritage in their name. They've been around for a couple years. They've got more time spent learning and testing out their tactics. You know, in the world of DCS PvP combat, well, it's, we can't read what the militaries keep figuring out. We've got to figure it out for ourselves. So these teams that spend their time learning and develop their own tactics, it's very, very valuable. And the heritage, just like it is in any sports competition, it does have a benefit. Do we stream this tournament often? This tournament happens once a year, hosted by 51st 100th KAP at their Discord, of course. Join that if you want to get in there. It is a multi-week, about a 3-month-long competition, getting all of their flares out, having a grand old time. The civilians down below wondering why it suddenly got so hot and why there's magnesium in the water. This competition happens once a year, has at least one fight every week, between 1 and 3 fights each weekend, Saturday and Sunday. There's another fight going on right now at Airshow's channel. Airshow D, the Sukhoi talking flanker himself, is casting another match between a different team set, and it will continue on. We'll be doing this next week, the week after that, and all the way, I believe, through April and May, if I'm not mistaken, with the finals being in May. We don't exactly know which who will be casting what next weekend. We haven't sorted that out yet, but it will be sorted out. These guys really having a grand old time showing off their formation. Perhaps deciding they want to land in Iran, maybe? I'm not sure where they're going. This is their airfield. This is where they need to land. They cannot land at Kasab. They cannot land at Shirat. They cannot land on the islands, and they cannot land in Iran. They have to land here at Ras Al Khaimah International Airport to get a victory. These guys having a bit of an air show they're putting on here now, knowing that, hey, we won the matches here. We are very confident in our abilities to land. I'm sure we'll do it. Let's make it pretty for the people watching at home. They certainly are. Even if the Center Viper has its air brakes out, and I wish it didn't. But the Viper can be a squirrely jet to fly in formation. Ask me how I know. Getting these guys as they sort out. Go ahead and send a little birdie over and see if we can't figure out how that other match went. And also see if we can't get Wolfpack and PTF to give a little interviews, give us a little bit of behind the scenes what their thoughts were as they did it. These gorgeous Vipers coming in. Truly was a good fight put up by Wolfpack, but a better fight put up by PTF, of course, managing to be the victors here. 2-0 win isn't something to scoff at. Like we said before, it's not indicative of a massive wipeout, but these guys did really, really well. Their heritage showing, of course, even taking the time to land themselves as a 3-ship on the runway. You can probably tell who their more experienced pilots are. They do have a bit of a way to go out towards the runway. This is not quite the Viper overhead brake that some of us might be used to. And so much so they're actually probably waiting. Lucky and Kahlua getting in close now, despite the fact that they were quite far back, perhaps unaware that the match had been finished, or just because of their positioning at the end of the match. Took them a little bit of a longer time to get themselves sorted out, but these guys are coming in. See if we can't get a nice shot of this 3-ship landing. We get, it'll be very far in the back, but there we go. The 3-ship coming in for a landing with the Dubai skyline in the back there. They are doing a fantastic job holding this formation, especially that Hornet there flying dissimilar like that. Can be difficult. Where is their airfield? I hope they know. Ah, there it is. You can see here as they get themselves sorted out and turned on final. Why don't we go ahead and watch them come in? In fact, Lucky decided, hey, I'm going to buzz the tower a bit there. Screaming over the runway. Yeah, there they are. That beautiful 3-ship coming in for a landing there. Give them some nice videos to watch. ETF won their fight. Oh, good job to ETF. And who won first round? 3-0. Well, it wouldn't be 3-0 because it is 1-2. Some of their last remaining flares there out of the Viper with that jettison button. But if ETF won, that would be 2-0. Both matches not having to go into an overtime. Somebody flying by. Bit of cutting the cake there, are we? Jeff Pilot. I want to go in first, actually. Air Show, welcome in, welcome in. I hear your match went well. Congratulations to ETF on their victory. We have a very similar situation over here. We are just waiting for the final aircraft of PTF to get themselves down and claim their second victory, watching a beautiful 3-ship landing here as they get themselves figured out. And we will quickly go in and have our interviews with them. We've got Wolfpack lined up, and hopefully we can have some of these pilots from PTF and their gorgeous landing come by as well. A little bit of a celebratory flare dump over the runway. Congratulations to PTF, confirming their win not only of round 2, but also their win of the match with a 2-0. This match goes to them. Woo! And a Jettissy of the Canopin. They are very pleased with themselves, as I think they should be. But the aircraft are safe down on the ground. It's a victory for them. Getting rid of their canopies. That is excess weight. You no longer need it. Indeed. Blowing the top. Look at this last 2 aircraft landed. And we'll go in for the interviews. In fact, I'll even leave you guys here to watch as I get myself in the right position. Uh-oh. We do love DCS and how the Vipers behave sometimes. The last 2 jets coming down. There is some FOD on the runway. Hopefully they don't run into the run into those canopies, but I think they'll be fine. And that is them on the ground. Once again, congratulations to PTF on their victory against Wolfpack today. We're going to go ahead and get right into the interviews. Hey, Mr. Groovy Jerky.
Hey, one of my buddies messaged me at the end of round 1. It's Jerry, but that's all right, sir.
I've called you Groovy Jerky for 2 streams now. I do apologize.
Right.
I seem to have an issue reading everybody's name. You had a fantastic fight in your 2 matches there. Unfortunately, you did lose, but I do think the match was put together quite well. What are some thoughts you'd like to share with us about your engagement, some things you might take away from this, some different strategies you tried out and failed, or some different areas you want to revisit?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's an awesome event, so I just want to get that out there first. So thanks for having us. You know, we tried something. So our very first round prior to this one, we gave up a lot of altitude when we got in close, and we were failing to climb out and get some altitude back, and it really kind of hurt us. So we changed it up. We decided to stack 3 deep to give those front guys who engaged a chance to, climb out to the rear, recommit, to have some altitude to keep pushing the fight forward. We try to be aggressive the first round, and and I think our long game was solid. We started running low on missiles as we closed into that 10-mile range, and that's still our pain point. We're practicing as a team, trying to get that all figured out, and but we kind of run out of our big sticks, our Fox 3s. So round 2, we decided to play a little bit more defensively, try to bleed the other team of some missiles before, and not push so many out at the beginning. You can see that at the round where I think it was Pale who was flying with me. We decided to turn off without fire and letting the 2 ship behind us and the other group behind them come in and fire, just to save some missiles. So kind of tried to mix up strategies. It didn't work out ultimately, but it was, you got to adapt, I guess.
Indeed, no. I mean, it's something we love to see here as casters. Teams taking in, hey, this is what worked, this is what didn't, and trying to figure out a better tactic on the fly. In fact, between the 2 rounds, one of the things we did mention was that you guys could try and set up your own set of grinders, be a bit more defensive, and try to have PTF make the first moves. And, of course, then you guys ended up executing just that. In fact, you were able to bleed out a couple SD-10s long range, maybe throw a bit of a wrench in PTF's minor mid-game adjustments to do the next round. So I think that worked out pretty well. I mean, unfortunately, like, obviously we see here, you guys do lose the match, but that doesn't mean the strategy was a bad one, and being able to adapt quickly on the fly is always something worth having as a team. We do have to talk about one specific moment that happened in the round 2, and I'm sure you're already aware of it, which is a little bit of blue on blue there. Unfortunately, Roller misidentifies you as a red target and decides that not just the AIM 9M, but the 120 as well was what you needed.
Hey, he wanted that kill.
He wanted that kill. Get another, it will still mark it as a kill for
yeah,
Wolfpack.
there we go. Mistakes happen. We could have communicated better as far as position is concerned. I'm not sure if he knew I was in front of him initially or not when he came in behind me. Unfortunately, he had to jump out and leave the conversation after the match was over. But it happens. He didn't have time to ID. I didn't know he was back there. Otherwise, I would have told him. It happens, right? Just miscommunication.
Of course, we get F10 map, F2 views, TAC view, and all that at the same time. We get spoiled with how much information we have, but it is indeed hectic for you guys down there in the actual flight. It's a little sweaty,
especially when you start getting into that 5-10 mile range. He probably, I can't, I wish it didn't happen, but he probably saw the target pop up and was like, crap, I got to fire and get the hell out of there. And so it, like I said, it happens. Communication would have worked out a little bit better, but it is what it is. We had a good time. We're happy with it.
Fantastic. We've also got Falcon and Kula from PTF. Congratulations to the PTF members on your victory. And we just heard a little bit from Groovy Jerry on their thoughts about the match. Do you guys have anything you want to share with us? Any of your tactics that worked, something you changed up, any ideas that you thought would work but didn't? Give us a debrief.
Well, I think we played it sort of trying to be conservative, but Wolfpack played a good game, so we just kept it conservative, fired as few missiles as possible, certainly in the early phases, and took it from there, really.
Indeed. Well, first round, of course, Wolfpack came in with their fists curled, throwing punches. Second round, they changed it up on you guys and decided to play a bit more of a defensive game. Now, we noticed that you had your Jeffs high fast, trying to get long-range SD-10 engagements. Were you guys expecting Wolfpack to go into a bit of a more of a grinder play style that second round through, or were you expecting them to once again come through with that high aggression that they've been known for in their prior matches?
Well, I watched the in-sky match, and there I think the second round they were more aggressive in the second round than the first. So I was kind of expecting that in this match, but it was definitely we could obviously watch them on the SA pages on the F-18s, and we could see them coming in on the first round at the Mach 1.3, and then in the second round they were definitely much slower.
Okay, interesting. So you had to adapt on the fly a little bit. Now, one question that I have for PTF, and this is a question I ask every team that decides to bring something unique. Now, this isn't the first time we've seen TALDs, but you guys did employ your TALDs. Were you pleased with how your TALDs performed? Would you adjust how you do that in the future, or do you guys think that maybe the TALDs aren't quite the right option for you?
How effective were they? Well, I mean, I wasn't sure.
How effective were they? We saw one missile get intercepted by a TALD. And that was the 4 set of TALDs fired in the second round. The rest of the TALDs in the first round, I don't believe they had any impact on Wolfpack. We were able to see through them quite easily. And in the second round, you had one TALD intercept a missile, but I think the rest of them were pretty easily identified.
Yes, I mean we've certainly flown against them in sort of training and in I think the in-sky match, and they are fairly easy to spot, aren't they? If you know what you're looking for, they're easy to spot. And I personally find it quite difficult flipping between air to ground, air to air to launch them. So I didn't bother in either round.
Indeed. Okay, so you're thinking maybe they're not the right ones for you. Now, one other question we do have is, and this is for Falcon, choice of taking the targeting pod on the Viper. Now I can kind of guess at what you were going for there, but what was your intention there? Because that's something we definitely haven't seen before in this competition.
Well, just to detect the missile launches. Most of the time you don't see them, but sometimes you just get lucky if you see a launch.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So a little bit of a long range missile detection. That's an interesting methodology, and I had one I wasn't even thinking. I had expected you were just using it for target identification at long range, trying to correlate maybe too long for a nectar response, and just making it easier than looking at RWR.
Yeah, especially for the target the ID to ID the target. What kind of aircraft is it?
Indeed, does make it easy to figure out if you're shooting at a Tal'd, I would assume.
Yeah.
Well, you guys did a fantastic match, both PTF and Wolfpack. Of course, PTF, your guys' 3-ship landings were a treat to watch at the end of each match. Did you guys?
Yep.
What were your? Was there any internal communication? We have to bring this up, and I do apologize to Wolfpack for bringing it up once again, but it's a blue on blue. We got to talk about him. Did you guys expect to see a blue on blue, or what was your reaction? Did you guys get thrown for a loop going, hey, why is there less contacts on the data link than we expected to see here? Where'd one of them go?
Yeah, I think you rarely see everybody on the data link, with people notching and stuff like that. So they sort of pop up and down. So you generally don't see everybody, do you? So
Indeed.
They didn't miss me.
I don't think we were aware, were we, Falcon, that there'd been a blue on blue.
I just heard that somebody killed friendly on the other team. Not sure.
Copy.
I think they were on my 6. I don't know. I'm not sure. Because I was running away and I had 2 targets on my 6. So probably one of them just killed the other one.
It actually was. It was about that exact same time. J-Bob and Battle were on your 6 there, and it was Roller into Groovy Jerry around where Kula and Predator were.
The other side.
Kula, you were hot on Groovy, and Groovy had to turn out cold because Roller accidentally foxed from behind. All in all, though, 2 teams, a good match, good display of tactics, good display of airmanship, and I think it's worth mentioning fantastic sportsmanship between both teams between rounds there, where we had some connection in issues. It's just great to see the teams ready to work together and say, hey, look, it's okay, we'll take some time, let you guys get on your best foot, because that's what we want to fight. I want to thank both teams for coming and let me interview you guys, ask you guys some questions. Congratulations and good fight to both of you. I think that you've both seen some tactics that worked, seen some stuff that doesn't work. You've got things to learn about, and I'm excited to see more out of the 2 teams in the future.
Yep, and thanks for streaming, and thanks for Wolfpack for a good game.
Yeah, you guys, it was a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
All right, well, I hope you guys enjoyed that. That will be the end of the Satac stream today. So when can you watch the next Satac stream? Well, the next Satac stream will be next weekend on Saturday. You can get more info in the Satac Discord. You can, of course, follow myself or Airshow or 104th Fallen are the main streamers of this event right now. You can follow any of us to get a notification when we go live for Satac. What else is going on? Well, I actually have another stream today. If you have enjoyed not only the content here, but if you've enjoyed my coverage of it, you want to have a little bit more of me in your life, I will be taking a short intermission here for about 30 minutes, and then we'll be coming back, maybe 30 minutes, an hour. You are more than welcome to come hang out there. We're going to be doing some more DCS this time. I will be flying rather than watching other people. We'll be doing some Apache work, doing some ground pounding in a little mission that we threw together with some friends. Should be enjoyable. Hopefully, I don't get a helmet fire like I do every time I'm in the Apache. That thing has too many radios. So if I see you guys there, I will be very happy. If not, I am just as happy. I hope you guys did enjoy the match coverage today. If you want to rewatch this because you came in with Airshow and you weren't able to catch the fight around live, you are always capable of watching the VOD, and as quickly as possible, I will get this uploaded onto YouTube so you guys can watch it there whenever